Oh hey guys, choosing a mobile lens system in 2026 is not the same as in previous years. In this video, I'm walking through the current landscape using my iPhone 17 Pro Max as a reference point. Let's get into it. So I was looking to iPhone lenses when I kind of went down a rabbit hole, and in my typical fashion, I started a spreadsheet. Now, to be clear, I'm not a pro, I'm not a cinematographer, I'm not a photographer, I'm just a guy who kind of likes cameras. So what I'm looking at today are EDC-friendly mobile lens systems, stuff you can realistically leave on your phone every day or, have in your bag with you all the time. Not something that turns your iPhone into a full-blown cage or rig or anything like that. And that's why you won't see things like the Beast Grip or heavy rigs or even cages here. That's just not the way I carry my devices. But quality does matter quite a bit to me. And I'm still figuring out where certain brands like Apixel or Ulanzi. But I do have first-hand experience of Neewer. So I will cover some of the Neewer lenses in my spreadsheet. And this isn't a definitive ranking of image quality. It is really just an overview of the various ecosystems and how they interact with each other. You'll still need to dig deeper into image quality differences, distortion, sharpness of each lens that you actually want to buy. I do have a different overthinking video all about ND filters, and consider watching that one if you haven't already, because it'll help you navigate a number of different options as it relates to ND filters instead. Finally, I've put this research together for educational purposes, but I might have gotten something wrong. If you do, let me know in the comments, and I will have a pinned comment below with any updates that might make sense based on user feedback. Anyway, let's get started. So we'll start with the Moment, because I think a lot of you are probably familiar with the Moment line. It's certainly the one that I first got introduced to. For this spreadsheet here, I'm going to first highlight the mounting solution, so the case. It's a pretty standard option, $55 US. There are third-party options available for the Moment lens. It's actually a pretty popular mount at this point. And I've seen solutions from Neewer, Small Rig, and also the one I use, Tilt-Up Chronos Lite. Now, there are some drawbacks to using a third-party solution. For instance, the Chronos Lite, it works, and it works pretty well, but I do notice that it scrapes the paint off lens, and not a big fan of that. I'm a little worried it's going to damage the lens too. It's already chipped it a little bit. Still works perfectly fine, but you don't really want your solution to do that. In terms of the lens lineup, it's got the full gamut. I've broken out the lens categories into 8 different specific types of lenses, plus other notable lenses that I noticed when I was browsing their website. So the first lens is a telephoto lens that fits over the main lens of the iPhone camera. Moment lens does of course have the 58mm mobile lens. So the telephoto over the main lens is just basically a lens that's going to either double or slightly more than double the zoom on your main lens. And your main lens is going to have the best image quality. So you're going to get much creamier bokeh when you compare to something like a digital 2x crop on your iPhone main camera. It's going to look better with this type of lens as opposed to just a digital crop. The next category is what I call the super zoom. What that is a lens that will go over the telephoto lens of your iPhone camera. And the Tele Moment 58mm, it's indicated to fit over the tele lens as well. So as you can see here, it says it will fit over your tele lens. It does say here that it's optimized for multi-lens devices. You can achieve 6 times optical zoom when mounted with the iPhone telephoto lens and paired with the Moment Pro camera app. I think this is a bit dated at this point because I don't think for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, because the iPhone 17 Pro Max is a 4 times zoom. So 2 times, 4 times, it should say 8 times here actually, but this would have been correct for the iPhone 14 Pro, I think. I have not tested it, so I can't confirm that, but there is no separate super zoom option in the Moment lineup right now, but maybe there will be soon. The next category is going to be the wide angle lens. So the wide 18mm mobile lens from Moment is the one that fits this bucket here. Now the reason you would use a wide lens over your ultra wide, for instance, is because what this will do is it will again let you use the best camera on your phone, which is the main lens, and all of the optical qualities of that main lens, and just get a wider field of view. It'll look nicer. It'll be potentially similar to the ultra wide camera in terms of a focal length, in terms of what you can see, but then the image quality will be better if you use that type of a lens as opposed to the ultra wide camera built into the iPhone. So the next category is fisheye, and Moment still got you covered with this one, and they have the fisheye 14mm mobile lens. This is even wider than the wide angle lens, and you could use this to get this really unique perspective, like you're in a fishbowl or something like that. You can see it's quite round here, and you can get a lot more into frame. And again, this is going to use the wide angle, use your main camera again, and get that really good optical quality. I've not used a lot of fisheye lenses, to be honest, but it does give you a much wider field of view. Maybe it was something I'll try this year. Then when it comes to the macro, you've got a couple options with moment and the macro lens. You've got the macro 10 times, and you've got the macro 75. And I've separated it out into two different categories on this spreadsheet here. The first is the close macro. And what this means, when I mean close, is you get really, really close. It's really just for essentially stationary objects. It's something that's not moving, and it'll get you really tight into the image. So you look at this, you get really close into those coffee beans. It'll be very hard to actually focus on a moving item because you're so close. Even a little tiny movement of whatever it is you're filming, it's going to be out of frame very quickly. So, and you got to be this close with this type of a close, macro close lens. Personally, I don't like using it this close because I don't take this type of photography. I actually use I have the macro 75 mobile lens, the T series, and they've got two right now. They've got the Model 1, which is actually what I have, and it's $112.50 here. It's cheaper than when I bought it. But there's also Model 2, and it's got a nice little red icon here, so you can tell that you've got the more expensive one. Seems like the new more expensive one is supposed to be better, but with this one, you get a bit more context into the photo. You can get spiders, for instance. But what do they say, long range? What I mean is that you can step back just a little bit more with this type of macro lens and get a bit more of the context, the environment into your shot. So you get a picture of the spider and its web. I do a lot with ladybugs and the surrounding areas and things like that. So I got a whole review video of the macro 75. I really do quite like it, actually. Okay, so next is the anamorphic lenses. First of all, you've got two different types. There's the 1.33 times and the 1.5 times. And then when you go into the option, there's actually two different options that you can choose from. You've got a blue flare and a gold flare. There's a lot of literature on 1.33 versus 1.55. This would be 1.33. You've got two black bars here, and the standard would be something like this. And with the 1.33, you get this much more on your side of your video. And then if you get the 1.55, it's even wider here. And you can see this shot is wider on both sides. You get extra the left and the right side on top of the black bars on top. Personally, like most of the times, I'm just taking videos of my kids and turning them into a nice little, compilation video of what they did on a trip or something like that. So I haven't gone down that rabbit hole, but there are different options. So this would be an example of a blue flare here. So whatever light source, you've got this flare going across horizontally, and this would be like a gold flaring here. So you got two different options there. The next kind of category that I've been keeping track of is filter compatibility with the case itself. So can I mount a filter onto this case? And of course, the answer at the moment is yes. They do have a proprietary system called the Quick Lock filter adapter, and it just kind of mounts right on top of this black plate here. This is actually kind of the key selling feature for me if I was to go to the moment of this quick lock filter system. There's various types of filters that are available. There is, of course, the CPL pictured here. There is a Cinebloom that you can get for $65, and there's also the VND 2 to 7 stop quick lock filter. And for me, this is the one. So you can get the 17 Pro Max, and it looks like this. And that's not going to block your audio or anything. There are also other solutions. For instance, if you were to go with the moment case, you still can use 67mm filters because they have a plate adapter for 67mm filters. It connects any 67mm filter to your moment lens case, and so that does mean it's no longer proprietary. You can use any 67mm filter you want. I just noticed this part here has a little bit of an indent. That does mean that you're going to have a better chance of having your MagSafe accessories fit. So that's one option to make the quick lock, the moment quick lock case, not a proprietary solution. The other option is you can use a T series to 37mm filter adapter. The drawback of using a solution like this is, of course, with the quick lock, you can switch between lenses really easily. You've got the ultra wide, the telephoto, and the wide, and they all fit under the quick lock. You can switch between lenses really easily. When you're filming on the fly, you don't have to pull off this filter and put it back on with either the quick lock or the 67mm. But if you were to use the 37mm adapter. It only sticks onto one lens at a time, and this is going to cost you $20, but I think it's actually well worth it to throw it in. Then you can use any 37mm filter that you want. So this video is about lenses, of course. So first of all, can I fit a filter on it? And second of all, do I need a special filter? Because that's going to racket up the cost as well. With the Moment telephoto and wide lenses, you actually can fit an adapter, and you use this 67 filter adapter here. So you would fit that on top of the lens. Now, personally, I don't love using 67mm filters on iPhones because I do find that somewhat big. And if you put it in front of a lens, it's actually going to protrude quite a bit on top of your case. So certainly if you went down the Moment solution and you had a lens, you could still use a filter and a non-proprietary filter with the Moment lens. So there's various ways you can mount it onto that. So that's the Moment solution. Okay, so the next category is the ShiftCam series. Now this uses the S mount to attach the lens to this very nice looking fabric case here. But if you look closely, it does kind of look like the Moment system. And if you read the reviews, you will see this guy here, Victor B. In the end, you finally adopted with a standard mount system, albeit being Moment's one. I would have preferred the M37 mounted B script because you could have made bigger lenses more light for the phone. I was like, really? And then when I looked it up, there's a Reddit post that says ShiftCam lenses are compatible with Moment T-series mounts. It does seem like your ShiftCam lenses will fit into a T-series case and vice versa. So they're proprietary, but suddenly a little bit less proprietary than before. I've never tested this firsthand, so you might want to look into this a bit more if you do go down one of these options and you care about proprietary versus not proprietary. But it looks like there is an option to use both the ShiftCam and the T-series system. In terms of lenses, ShiftCam does have the full gamut. You've got the 60mm tele lens for the 130. This is the super zoom that I was talking about. This one's quite interesting, and that was $250. So quite expensive. But if you think about what you're getting optically, like this is actually on the cheap side for just a regular camera lens. It's a bit less sophisticated because there's no like internal electronics in terms of autofocus or like that you would see in your Sony lens, for instance. Of course, you do have a 16mm wide angle. This is a little bit wider than the Moment lens, which is 18mm. You've got a fisheye, so you got 200. And again, here it's, as you can see, it's on sale. Like these things are always going on sale, so kind of wait for sales as well. You've got a macro close option. It's called the 10x macro. You've got a 75 macro, which is the equivalent of a macro long range. And you have a 1.33 anamorphic, and this one has a blue flare, and also 1.55 anamorphic, and this one is also only blue flare as well. So a lot of different options here. It's got the full range that I've covered here. With the ShiftCam, what they have done in terms of filters, they have gone with 17mm filter sizes, and that means they use a pretty big filter. 72mm is actually quite large for a mobile lens. 67 is kind of more standard. I'm going for a lighter solution, so I don't tend to like using big filters for my phone, so take a look at that. There's a filter kit, and so for $24.98 you can fit like their proprietary filters onto your phone. But because it seems like it's T-series compatible, you can actually use the Moment T-series to 37mm adapter. And then at that point, you can use any 37mm filter. So that's one option you have down the road. In terms of filters, they do have a VND for $159. You have a CPL for $79 and a black mist half filter for $79. So it can get pretty expensive very quickly. And again, if you were to go down this path of adding a filter to your ShiftCam lens, you would need a filter adapter, and it's going to cost a little bit more money, but there is an option there. Okay, let's go to Sandmarc. So it can use any 17mm threaded mount. The one thing I'll note with the Sandmarc lens that kind of makes it stand out a bit is any lens that you buy, you actually don't need to buy a case because it comes with a case, and it comes with something called a clip-on mount. So if you don't want to use a specific case, you can just use it with any case that you might already have. I think it's usually better to use a case that has the thread built into the case, but options are always good. They do have a Pro case, which I did say in my ND filter video that I thought it's a nice looking case, and I still think, and maybe it's just my demographic, but I do think these leather cases look really nice. These ones start at $49.99 if the leather ones cost $10 more. But let's go right into lenses. You've got the telephoto 2x that's compatible with the iPhone 17 Pro Max Tetra Prism lens, and this is the equivalent of the 240mm super zoom. So that one's pretty interesting. You've got the wide lens. So you've got this one here, and this is at 16mm, so it's The same focal length as the shift cam, slightly wider than the moment lens. You'll fit a little bit more in frame than when you compare it to the moment lens. You've also got a macro lens. You got the macro 25 and you also have a macro 100, and this is kind of more for extended focus distance and filming moving objects or subjects requiring a bit more space. So there's actually two different options here. It's got the full lineup as well. There is a fisheye option. This one is 10 millimeter or 210 degrees. It's 5 times ultra wide, 10 millimeter, 210 degrees. It's getting pretty wide at this point. And then the anamorphics, there are two. So you got the anamorphic lens, you got 1.33 and 1.55. So the anamorphic 1.33 is gold, but for the 1.55, it's the blue flare. You have to get the blue flare, so you don't get as many options with the Sandmarc as you do with the other two so far. Now, there are a couple other interesting lenses. There's this telephoto 6x lens, and this actually fits over the iPhone, the main camera lens, so you get kind of potentially better optical quality. I don't know how useful I actually like it, because when you have something that magnifies it that much, you actually run into a lot of stability issues. And then you've also got the 10 times here, same thing. I just haven't really looked too deep into it, but there are options here. And you've also got a probe lens, so you can like kind of go right through this donut hole. Very specific types of photography. And one thing that's really important was, now that we've gone to 17 millimeter, they're not proprietary. You can buy a case like, say, that has a 17 millimeter thread, like the one I use, the Tilta. That one is a 17 mil thread, so I could get the Reeflex 240, but maybe I like the long range macro from Sandmarc and I buy that one instead. Or I really like the Freewell anamorphic and I buy the Freewell anamorphic, and you kind of mix and match between the 17 mil non-proprietary options. That's the beauty of non-proprietary. In terms of filter compatibility, they have a whole bunch of filters. So you've got all sorts of clip filters. I don't like clip solutions, but you can use a step-up ring, essentially the same as what I was talking about before. A 17 to 37 millimeter adapter. This one is a 17 to 43 millimeter adapter, and then just allows you to put the filter over any of the three lenses. You won't be able to switch quickly between each lens, but you will have filter compatibility. And to me, honestly, I think that's good enough a lot of the time from my perspective. And of course, it's 17 mil. There is a 17 to 37 millimeter Neewer adapter that you can find for like $10 on Amazon. I use that and I love it, and it's sometimes on sale too, so it's even less than $10. So you could look into that as well. And 37 millimeters is actually smaller than 43, obviously, so then it's going to be slightly smaller profile. I'd go with whichever filter size you already have. So if you already have 43 millimeter filters, kind of go with that. If you've got 37 millimeter filters, consider going with that instead. So a couple different options there. They have a separate filter lineup. They've got hybrid ND, PL filters. You've got motion variable, drama polarizer, retro filter, star filter. So a bunch of different filters, Cinema Pro Edition. So a lot of different options here. In terms of the filter compatibility, filters that they sell are going to fit the telephoto, anamorphic, tetraprism, and wide angle lenses. They all use a common 43 millimeter thread mount. Okay, so let's go into the Reeflex. They have a G series lens lineup, but it's actually a 17 millimeter threaded mount. So again, it's kind of compatible with like almost everything that case with the lens. They have a carbon and they have a leather option. So you've got two different options for cases here. In terms of the lens lineup, now Reeflex doesn't have the full gamut of lenses actually. They do have the regular telephoto over the main, that's the telephoto 2X, so that's looking pretty good. You've got the super telephoto 240. I think a lot of people know about this one, and you can add macro add-ons, so on top of the 240, so 265 plus 180. You can bundle it, but you can buy both of these, and this will give you both tele and macro capabilities. Then you've got the wide angle lens that is going to be 18 millimeters and 110 degrees. So this will be kind of equivalent to our moment lens focal length. In terms of macro, you have a close range macro, the 10x here, and the long range macro here as well. So there's two different options for macro. It's got them both covered. It's got a fisheye 220. This will be on the wider side compared to everything else at 8 millimeters. So true fisheye. And then it's got a 1.33 times anamorphic, and this is a blue flare for $170. However, they do not have a 1.55 anamorphic. But again, this is 70 mil, so even if you went with the Reeflex case, you can fit like the free anamorphic lens on top of that. In terms of base filter set, it's a 17 mil, so it's not proprietary. You can use a 17 to 37 millimeter filter adapter here, but they do have a set that you can use. So then this is the set you'd use, $35 US dollars, and these are 67 millimeter adapters for magnetic filters, so it'll be very easy to quick change them when you're kind of on the fly. So you can see here, you've got a filter adapter kind of fits onto any of these and fit right onto your case, for instance. These are 67mm filters. So again, I tend to not like 67mm because I think it's too big for my use case, but it's still small in the shift cam, which uses 72mm filters. But anyway, I like using 1737 because I'm really EDCing this a lot. I'm pulling in my pocket, taking a video, and then putting it back in my pocket. So I want something small like a 37mm filter or something like the Tilta that I use. Now, this filter set, they do have a lot of different nice filters. You've got non-variable NDs. So each of them are $45. You can bundle them and it costs a little bit less. You can get variable ND filters and those are $100 US each. You can get a black mist 1/8 and that's going to be $80 and a CPL for $80. So a lot of filter options. Again, that's more than I would typically spend on a filter, but I know a lot of people spend this kind of money on a filter and get very good results from it. So there's a reason to do that. So that's Reeflex. A lot of good options here. Let's go to Freewell, which is something that I may be looking into next year. Again, this is 17mm, non-proprietary. Can use any 17mm lens. They do have a very nice Kevlar option. It looks quite nice. I think it actually looks really good. So they have almost the full lineup. They've got the 1.7 telephoto for $199, but it always seems to be on sale for $130. And this one will fit over the main lens. I haven't seen anything that says the 1.7 doesn't work over the telephoto. I think I've seen some YouTubers say that the 1.7 does fit over the telephoto lens as well, but I don't think they explicitly say that. So look into that, do some research in that if that's important to you, or you can, honestly, if you want to get something specific in telephoto, you can use any of the options that are compatible with the 17mm filter thread. There is a wide angle option that's in the pre-order stage right now. That's not out yet, but it's coming out soon. They have a fisheye right here that's 8mm, so on the wider side, comparable with the Reeflex as well. So it's pretty wide. It's got a lot of different options. In terms of macro, there's two different types. There's the 45 times macro, so that will get you pretty close. That's quite close, 45 times. But you also have something coming out, the 100mm long range macro, so that's coming out. And in terms of anamorphic, they've got 1.33 anamorphic, and that comes in blue, gold, and neutral. You've also got a 1.55 times. That costs a little bit more, but it also has blue, gold, and a neutral flare. But what I think is super interesting is this 3-in-1, the Steven Divish 1.33 times. You've got a 1.55 times version of it as well, and you can switch between blue, gold, and neutral. You're not stuck with any specific type of flare. You can switch it based on condition. And they've also got a little locking mechanism. So when I said earlier, 17mm thread, you can keep twisting it. This one here allows you to lock it, so you can find the perfect framing every time. Otherwise, you got a slightly askew anamorphic shot, which doesn't look very good. So of course, 17mm, so you can use a 17 to 37mm filter adapter, not proprietary. Use any filter you want. And there are a lot of filter options. You've got this filter option that just slides right on. That looks pretty cool. They've got a bunch of lenses, but some of them are, I think, brand new. Like they're just in pre-order stages right now. So these are kind of like the best of the best right now, or like the newest ones. But all of these lenses that I've seen so far are compatible with a 58mm filter thread. So you can tell because you see that line there? That's 58. That says 58 right there. That means that it fits a 58mm threaded mount. So again, that's good. Freewell, I think, is doing a really good job making sure that their solution is as non-proprietary as possible. And that's always a good thing. I really do like that quite a bit. So that's Freewell. I think it's really interesting. I do like a lot of what they're doing. So I might be trying that next year. Finally, the last one is Neewer. Here we're talking about, it's more of the budget side of things. Their solution is non-proprietary. And so you can use any 17mm case. They have their own 17mm case. The PA133 or 145, that's available. That's about $40 US. So that's actually the cheapest of all the options here. So when it comes to the lenses themselves, I did find the Neewer a little bit confusing because they've got so many lens options. So what I mean is they have a page specifically on 2026 Neewer. And so I kind of based my selection off that off the ones I highlighted. So I know there are more options than are listed on my spreadsheet. So for the telephoto lens, there's actually a whole bunch of different Neewer telephotos, but the one that the page has highlighted, like the Neewer has highlighted, was this LS41 Pro at 60 millimeters, and it comes with a clip and a filter adapter. This is the one that suggests that it gives you these really nice portrait shots, theoretically. For the super zoom, I looked at this one here, the LS79 2x 240 millimeter converter with lens kit, and this actually includes a macro adapter if you buy that kit. And the reason I went with this one over the Reeflex or Sandmarc is purely based on price. 200 millimeter and macro is not something I do every day, and I wasn't willing to spend $280, $400, $450 on something I'm not using every day. So I did review this. I do quite like it for what it is. I do find it a little challenging to use, but it does give me a lot of options in terms of getting really far or really close shots. So I do like that one. In terms of the wide angle, this website's suggesting the LS42, which is this one here, and that's an 18 mil, so equivalent essentially to the Moment in terms of focal length. The base filter is 45 millimeters, but you can use 67 millimeter filter adapter as well. So this one gives you that wide look if you want that. So with the Neewer, the macro close, you use the LS28 Pro 10 times macro lens. You can see it's much less expensive than any of the other options out there. And then this will give you that kind of close macro look. So that's good. For the long range macro, you use the LS26, and you can get nice and tight with this B, for instance. And so that's pretty cool. For anamorphic, Neewer's got you covered there. They don't have a 1.33 anamorphic, but they do have a 1.55 anamorphic, and it's this one here, and it's got the blue flare. Now they have all sorts of lenses, so I cannot go over all of the things they have. They just got so much going on here. I'll just highlight a few of them. There's the 6X. I kind of feel like Neewer has its own video. There's so many options here. I don't know if anyone's interested in just a purely Neewer video for budget lens options. Maybe just a budget lens, line it with the Neewer, Ulanzi, Apixel, all those brands. But there's a possibility for a video there if you guys tell me to do it. The LS57, that's a Neewer spherical fisheye, and with that interesting shots that look like this. You know, that's pretty cool. Don't know if I'd use that, but I thought that was pretty cool when I was researching lenses. There's also one that I've considered huge, maybe overkill, the LS66. And this one looks like a really good lens, but I honestly don't know if I'd use something this big on my phone. So a little bit too big for me, but this one is interesting as well. The interesting thing about the Neewer solution is that it comes with all of the backplates. So it has a 67mm adapter, T-series, and 17mm. So you're covered for all your bases, to be honest. Again, 67mm is a little bit big for me, but I could use a 17mm adapter here and then a 17 to 37mm filter adapter. Said that a lot of times. I do really like it, and that will kind of get you where you need to go. But with the 67mm that comes with the kit, it just connects any 67mm filter you want, so that's a good thing. It's a proprietary filter recovery basis on what's the lineup. You don't need a proprietary filter. You can use anything, so there's no limitation on the base system. In terms of the lenses, all of the lenses that I've looked at do tend to have threaded filters. You can use any filter you want, but they're not the same size, which is not great, because it would be nice if all I do is carry one filter that works for the same base system as it does for all lenses that I bring out with me. They've got a lot of different options here of various ranges. So the LS77, which I do have, is a 37mm thread, and the LS59 says it's compatible with the 72mm filter thread. So bunch of different options out there. Anyway, hope this was helpful. It was a whole lot to talk about. So this is what it looks like at the beginning of 2026. If you have bought an iPhone 17 Pro or Pro Max and your focus tends to be more on video than on the photography side, I would actually suggest looking at an ND filter instead of a lens as the first thing. So I have a whole video about that. Go check that out. There's a lot of different solutions there as well. Some overlap and some don't. That's all it is for me today. I've got a lot of things on the hopper. Please do consider subscribing if that's your vibe. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.